Hello, my name is Tina Rose. This is the People Pleasers Support Group, and we are all here to support each other in our process, our healing of the people pleasing patterns that we have taken on in order to survive. I have been summoned to change the trajectory of your life by giving you real life practical examples that are coming into my experience and that help us see the practical ways where we are healing and how. And along with energy healings, energy transmissions. And today's energy healing is about clearing karma. And this energy transmission will help us be more ready, be more prepared to relax back into the divine flow so we can see the patterns more clearly. So let's get into, I want to talk about the definitions of karma and what karma has become a household word. And so I'm going to say that karma is not a punishment. Karma is not a cosmic punishment system. It is frequency based feedback within consciousness. And karma is not fate. The momentum of karma stops when we have completely reclaimed our free will to choose us, to choose you instead of choosing other people, instead of choosing the people please. We stop abandoning ourselves and we choose to face those fears and those patterns over and over in order to heal. So, the definition that I like to support karma is essentially unfinished energy, emotions, actions, lessons that we never integrated. That means we didn't feel the feelings. We noticed that we were feeling something in some cases, but we didn't process them. We were afraid of them. We just pushed them down in our body. We didn't let them move through. And this allowing of the karma or emotion to move through you is the process of clearing karma. And once you have cleared karma, this means you have finally learned the lesson. So when you have learned the lesson, that means you've seen the patterns clearly. You feel rather than avoid and ignore the emotions or whatever it is that you are needing to heal. Clearing the karma means you responded from clarity and not fear. You responded from awareness and not your wounding. This is all the process of the karmic process. It's a loop, and it just goes around and it just cycles back. It loops back until you have completed letting go of all that stored fear, all that stored emotion that you were never able to process or release from your body. And examples would be guilt, shame, self-abandonment, self-betrayal. And a couple of these, I want to give you some of my real life examples that happened recently, which I think is pretty cool. And earlier this year, I had ear surgery, and that was in April of 2025. I did everything the doctor told me to do. I didn't get water in my ear and all these things. I followed his instructions. I went back um, 2 or 3 times for follow up, post op, for follow up visits for him to check it, and it was doing well. And then I decided, for reasons I'll explain in a minute, not to go back the third time. And it was because he wanted me to have a hearing test. Well, I've been to 2 post-op checks. He said, it's healing great. You're doing a good job. But what happened after that was my ego took over at one point, because when I got my bill for that second post-op check, or the first one, when I got my bill for the first post-op check, he had actually charged me to clean the wax out of my ear, when I had been instructed not to remove the packing after the surgery and not to stick anything in there, right? Don't remove the packing, don't do anything to it. He charged me almost $100 just to clean the wax out of my ear. And I was thinking, okay, well, I thought post-operative checks were part of the initial cost, which I had already paid. So I kind of like, no, if he wants to have a measure of how good my hearing is after he did the surgery, so he could have a record of it, let him pay for it. Yeah, I just kind of, I guess that was just ego activity. But that's what I decided. I said I knew my hearing was better. It was very much better. That was my goal, to get all of my hearing back. And I had tested it with different things in different ways, and it was working great. But what happened was, when I did some international travel, went to England, and, the ear pressure that you get at high altitudes in the plane, and it was like 6 different legs going there and coming back, so it was happening a lot. But it was 5 months after the surgery, so I was cleared to do that. But so what happened, and then I got COVID right after I got back, and 3 days or so into having COVID, I started having I could hear like the pulsating in my ear. And so, okay, let me make an appointment. So when I got back to the appointment, and the doctor, sat down, they're always so busy. And he walked in, and then he started reading my chart. And he's looked at me. He's like, you didn't come back for your hearing test. I said, no, I didn't. And, he starts getting irritated about that. And he starts talking loud, and he was irritated with good reason. And he, starts saying, you need to trust your doctor. You need to trust me. And he said some things, and I understood he was upset. But I was learning to express myself and be upfront about what I was feeling. I said, yeah, I felt a little bit irritated that you charged me to clean wax out of my ear when you told me not to remove the packing and all that. And so we had this back and forth, and he was very upset with me. And in those situations, I would typically feel shame. So this was about shame, an old pattern of feeling shame and guilt, and somebody not being happy with me, and choices that I had made, they didn't like them. But the beautiful thing was that I was never triggered by what he was doing. I was still able to say how I truly felt and why I made that decision, and so he left. He said, okay. So he said, okay, well, go get your hearing test. And I left his room, did all that, and another hour passed, right? You have to get the hearing test and then wait a little while. I went back into his office after we had both had time, to contemplate what had evolved. And another beautiful thing happened the second time I was in his office. He apologized. And I don't know if you can hear my dog. She heard something outside and she's growling. I hope that's not too disruptive. But he apologized for getting upset. And I loved the way that felt. Not that he apologized, but the way I was feeling on the inside. The first time I was in there, I never had any triggers or any anchors of any shame or guilt. And so when he apologized, I said, I needed to hear that, the little uh, lecture about needing to trust your doctor and all those things that he'd said. And I understood why he was upset. And I had a feeling he was going to be upset about it. And I was actually grateful that he was honest with me about how he felt about it. The fact that he was a little upset and giving me the lecture showed me that he cared. And it was just, that's part of clearing the karma. I was able to see during his lecture, and now at that point, I was able to see that this was all happening for me. And that experience, even back to when I decided not to go back for the original hearing test, even though I felt like, it was maybe following ego activity, my higher self was dropping that in my lap so that this experience would come into fruition to give me an opportunity to choose me, to choose, and show myself that I had learned and cleared that karmic loop of feeling guilt and shame for not pleasing people. Just the whole thing was beautiful. And so after he apologized, and I said, I needed to hear that. It's like we validated each other's feelings. There was more conversation into it. But as we were walking out, he was putting his arm around me and he was saying just extra things, just being, extra kind, and we just understood each other and it felt so good. So that's an example of how clearing a karmic loop, a karmic pattern kind of is confirmed. It's basically consciousness trying to come back into coherence. When you repeat the same reaction, consciousness stays in that pattern, in that low frequency karmic pattern. When you respond differently over and over again, the mirror that your higher self is putting out there for you to see your internal pattern dissolves. After you repeatedly choose differently from that old pattern, the mirror dissolves. So today's energy healing is about to begin, and it's going to put you in more of a prepared state to begin to see, feel these patterns that you have. So get into your comfortable position and say, I am open to receive. The energy transmission begins now. Take 3 rounds of deep breathing. I feel the energy already flooding out, pouring forth. Lots of love. I'm inviting Archangel Raphael to help with this healing today. my highest consciousness, as well as yours, to assist. And all of our guides that want to step forth and assist with this healing. Karma doesn't clear when we understand the lesson mentally. Karma clears when the lesson becomes embodied truth. For example, when self-abandonment becomes self-honoring, when overgiving becomes balance, reciprocity, where you were once silent, you now choose truth-telling. When fear of upsetting someone becomes soulful self-trust. When you feel complete neutrality in that experience. I feel the energy not just flooding forth from my hands, but from my heart and my throat. It's very strong and very powerful. Now I have some words to soothe our inner child. And you can repeat after me. I will give a space between each. Hi, my sweet child. I am here with you. And you are safe with me now. There are patterns we have carried for a long time. You did not cause them. And until now, I didn't know how to stop them. It is not your job to fix any of these. But I am here now to hold your hand as I move through the process of healing these. Remember, you are not alone, my dear child. I am right here. Your job is simply to let me love you, and I will listen to you and protect you. I choose differently now. And this frees us both a little more each time. You be the child. I've got you. Much love to you. And blessed be.